Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be going through my most disappointing books of 2022. So these are all books that I read last year that I was expecting to like a lot more than I actually did, and I'm going for a chill vibe in this video because I tried to film this earlier and it wasn't really working. I think I was overthinking everything that I was saying, when at the end of the day, if you've clicked on this video, then you probably have already guessed that this is going to be a more negative video, because I am going to be talking through the reasons why these books didn't work for me personally. I really enjoy watching videos like this, and there have been times where I've actually added books to my TBR based on the reasons why someone didn't like that book, because they might be reasons that wouldn't personally bother me. So I'm going to start with a book that I actually didn't finish, and that was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Amal Almota. This is a case of I liked the idea of the plot, but I didn't like the writing. So this is about two rival time travel agents who are moving back and forth in time, making small changes that benefit their factions later on in the future. It's told in letter format, so these two main characters are writing letters to each other, and I did really like the idea of the plot. I really liked the concept. However, I didn't like the writing. It's very purple prose, but to the extreme, and I was finding that I was having to reread every page just to understand what was happening. I think if you like books that are very descriptive and that have that slow writing style, then you might enjoy this more than me, but I didn't finish it. I think I got about 100 pages in and I decided I was going to put it down, and I have thought about picking this up again, maybe at a different time when I'm feeling more patient and where I think that I might enjoy it more. But yeah, this wasn't for me in the end, which is okay. I didn't rate this because I didn't finish it. However, I know plenty of people who have loved this book. Next on my list is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. So this was disappointing because I really enjoyed The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and I did really like the writing in Love on the Brain. I really like Ali Hazelwood's writing, which was why this was even more frustrating, because her books are very compulsively readable, and I really like the way that she balances an interesting plot with the romance. But the miscommunication in this really started to annoy me, and I found it so frustrating that the two main characters just wouldn't talk to each other, and it was an issue that I had with The Love Hypothesis. However, it bothered me a lot more in this book. It basically follows a main character called Bee who gets this job working for NASA, and she's really excited about it because it's this great opportunity. However, she finds out that her co-lead on this project is this guy called Levy, who I think she went to grad school with him, and he wasn't very nice to her when they were at grad school. And this is another problem that I had, is that in the beginning I did not like this guy either. I did eventually start liking him later on in the book, but yeah, these characters just wouldn't talk to each other. And I think a very niche thing that I don't like in romance books is when the main character refuses to even entertain the idea that the love interest might like them in a romantic way. I could understand a little bit in this book because this guy hadn't been very nice to her before they started working together, but it was all miscommunication, and it started to really frustrate me. Also, the ending wasn't the best in my opinion. It started to feel like an action movie and it seemed to come out of nowhere. So that was really jarring, and yeah, it was really disappointing because I genuinely thought I was gonna love this. Even though I'd seen some mixed reviews, I thought I was gonna like it, but I will still read other books by Ali Hazelwood because I do really like her writing. I'm just hoping that her next book is slightly different to her previous two books, because this did feel very similar to The Love Hypothesis. I saw a few people say that they didn't like Love on the Brain because it was too similar to The Love Hypothesis, or the characters were too similar. That didn't actually bother me. I did quite like the characters individually. I just didn't find myself rooting for them to get together. Next on my list is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, which, to be fair, I gave this 3 stars. I didn't hate it, and it wasn't the worst romance book that I read last year. However, it has put me off reading other books by Tessa Bailey, because I don't think I like the way that Tessa Bailey writes dirty talk, and there was a lot of dirty talk in this book. It's a shame because on paper I thought I was gonna love this. It's grumpy sunshine and it's set in this small town. It follows a main character called Piper, who's a party girl from LA, and she takes things too far one evening and her stepdad essentially banishes her to this small town where she's trying to renovate this pub, but she ends up meeting this guy called Brendan, who's a fisherman from this town, and yeah, on paper I should have loved it, but I couldn't get past the dirty talk. I would still recommend this if you think that that wouldn't bother you, but I'm a little bit hesitant to pick up other books by Tessa Bailey. I think I will try the next book in this duology, which I know follows Piper's sister Hannah. Again, I've heard mixed things about that, so I don't know if I am going to enjoy it, but I think I'll give it a go just so I can finish off this series. Another book that I was really hoping to love last year was Circe by Madeline Miller. So this is a Greek myth retelling that follows this character called Circe, who was the daughter of Helios, and right at the start of the book, following a series of events, she's banished by Zeus to this isolated island where she teaches herself witchcraft. Throughout this book, she also comes into contact with a lot of other people from Greek mythology, and I really liked the way that Madeline Miller developed the character of Circe. I thought that that was done really well. However, this was very slow and it's a very descriptive writing style, and I found it quite boring in places. I think I would still recommend this if you like books that are essentially a very deep and emotional character study. However, I found this a real slog to get through. I never felt compelled to pick it up, so yeah, I gave it 2 stars overall. It's a shame because I did really enjoy The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, but this was very different. I think if you liked one, it doesn't necessarily mean that you would like the other. Now, which Riley Sager book should I rant about first? Because I read both Final Girls and The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager last year, and I hated them both. So I think I'm going to start with Final Girls because I read that first. Up until Final Girls, I'd actually enjoyed all of the Riley Sager books that I've read, so this took me by surprise. I was expecting to like this even if I didn't love it. I know that it's the first book that he published and I had heard mixed things going into it, but like I said, I'd enjoyed all of Riley Sager books up until that point, so yeah, this was even more disappointing because I was genuinely expecting to like it, but this was so boring in the beginning, and then the ending, I didn't see it coming in some ways, but I also really didn't like the direction that this went in. So this is following a main character called Quincy, who's a final girl. So when she was at college, her and her friends went away to this cabin and there was a massacre and she was the only survivor. It's now, I think, around 10 years later, and Quincy learns that this other final girl called Lisa has just passed away, and the police think that it was suicide. However, this other final girl called Sam shows up at Quincy's door claiming that maybe it wasn't suicide and that someone is trying to kill off these final girls. One of the main issues that I had with this book was the pacing. So it was very slow in the beginning and then the ending happened too quickly and I just didn't find it believable. And I know that not every thriller has to be believable, but the characters didn't feel very realistic to me. They were doing stuff that made no sense, and yeah, it just really annoyed me. There was also some weird sexual content which I think just wasn't needed, and it made me feel really uncomfortable, so I gave this one 2 stars, and I think I was being generous. I didn't guess all of the twists, and that is something that I like about Riley Sager's books, is that he always seems to write these twists that I never see come in, and that's why I keep on picking up his books. Surprisingly, I didn't actually hate The House Across the Lake as much as I hated Final Girls. However, I also didn't like the direction that this went in, and I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything. The reasons why this book didn't work for me are actually reasons why it worked for other people, but yeah, this was just boring in the beginning, and then the ending seemed like it came out of nowhere. Not my kind of thing, so yeah, I also gave this one 2 stars. 2022 was not a good year for reading Riley Sager. I am quite nervous about his new release that comes out later in 2023. I'm still gonna read it though, because apparently I just enjoy torturing myself. Next on my list is Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Weisner, which I was expecting to love based on the synopsis. I'd never read any books by this author before, but I thought this was gonna be amazing. I'd heard so many good things, but I didn't like the writing, unfortunately. So this is about a main character called Cassie, who's 21, she's in college, and she goes to this bar one evening intending to drink alone. However, she meets this older woman and there's this instant attraction, so they end up having a one-night stand. However, the next morning, Cassie finds out that this woman is actually her best friend's mom. It ends up getting very messy, and I did like certain aspects of this book. It was mostly the writing that I didn't like. Saying that, I would say that this is actually some of the best smut that I've read in a sapphic book, so if you're looking for something that's really steamy, then I would still recommend this. I just didn't really like the pacing of the relationship and the pacing of the book. There would be random time jumps in the middle of a chapter which jarred me a little bit, and yeah, I didn't like how this felt like insta-lust in the beginning, and then suddenly I was being told that these characters were in love. I didn't really follow the logic of how we got there. Yeah, I didn't find the emotional connection that believable, I think is what I'm trying to say. The final book that I did want to mention is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. So this was the only book that I gave 1 star in 2022. I did not like this book, and the thing is that I went into it with lower expectations because I'd heard a lot of mixed reviews, and a lot of the reviews that I'd heard had mentioned stuff that I know I don't personally like in thrillers, so I was a little apprehensive going into this. However, I hated this book. I listened to the audiobook and I think it should have worked as an audiobook because we're following this main character and it's told from her perspective. I think the main character's name is Mariana, and she gets a call one day from her niece Zoe, who's at university in Cambridge, and Zoe is in a bit of a panic because her roommate or her friend has been missing for a few days and the police have just found a body, so she's panicking and Mariana shows up. She decides to go and visit Zoe to comfort her because I think Zoe's parents passed away when she was young and Mariana essentially raised her. When Mariana arrives, Zoe starts telling her about this guy within her department who's a professor, and Mariana becomes convinced that this guy is a murderer, and the book is about her fixation on this guy and it's about her inserting herself into this investigation, and I just couldn't understand why she became so obsessed. It didn't make sense to me, and a lot of her thought processes also didn't make sense. I found the majority of this book quite boring, and then I hated the ending. Obviously I can't go into details because of spoilers, but yeah, I thought it was handled really badly, and considering that this is pitched as a dark academia book, I didn't feel that at all. I didn't feel any atmosphere, and probably won't read any more books by Alex Michaelides, even though I didn't mind The Silent Patient. This was just not for me. I am regretting wearing this fluffy thing for this video. I thought it would help me feel all cozy, but instead I just feel like I'm melting. But that does bring me to the end of this video, so thanks for watching. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and click subscribe if you would like to see more videos from me, but otherwise I will see you next time. Bye!